I think we are pretty much live. Yes. Sorry, this is a bit short notice. I was originally going to do content with Jack Dodds, but he's basically got work commitments. How dare he? Um, Obviously, how dare life get in the way? So I figured, go on then. I'll go live myself for a little bit. Um, so I figured I'd already kind of set it up, and then Jack had sort of told us at the last minute that he needed to go, anyway, which isn't his fault. Sometimes that just happens. If he says that he can come on, then then fair enough. But sorry, I'm just quickly just checking to see if Jack has messaged me, but I don't think he has. Right, there we go. But anyway, no. How is everyone doing this morning? Obviously, we've got a couple of people watching. I will say, just as a pre-warning, one of the dogs is with me in my room at the minute. So if I get up for a second, it's because I need to let her out. But she's literally just kind of sitting on the bed, to be totally honest. So, anyways, we've got what was it, one person watch. I figured we'll just go through talking about Sunderland's. Obviously, go through the last time going through because the last day we can kind of milk it in really. Sunderland's Derby Day win over Newcastle last weekend, and then obviously kind of look ahead to Brighton, and then look ahead to the sort of the AFCON period. So yeah, let's see. But anyway, obviously we have got John McKinney in there at the moment. So obviously, thanks very much for the applause, mate. Well, I don't know if you meant to send that emoji, but if you did, then thanks very much. Gomez, Dunk, and Balabar won't be here for Saturday. That is very true. I suppose the flip side is we won't have Reynaldo, Siddiqui, Traore, Talbi, and whoever else. But yeah, so I'm quite looking. But I mean, obviously tomorrow's game, I'll get on to Brighton later on, but yeah, it's going to be interesting. But yeah, the Brighton are without a fair few players. They've got things like Balaba injured, and I think Gomez and Dunk are suspended. I think they both picked up fifth yellow cards, so that could potentially be quite handy for Sunderland. But yes, so let's quickly go through the last remnants of Sunderland 1, Newcastle nil. Obviously, for me personally, this meant quite a bit because I live in a Newcastle household. We don't tend to take the mick too much in terms of too much banter, but we, obviously, of course, you want to beat your rivals, don't you? And quite frankly, to be honest, I think not from all of their fans, but I think some of their fans, especially since the what is it, the takeover, I think they've needed humbling and brought back down to earth a little bit. And yes, I'm not going to lie, the head loss reaction has been absolutely hilarious, but at the same time, it's one of them, isn't it? If we performed like that at St James's in the reverse fixture, I would be fuming as well because Newcastle offered pretty much next to nothing, to be totally honest. And I think it was worth pointing out just how. But I also think it was also worth pointing out. I think just that I thought Sunderland generally defensively were outstanding, and you've got to bear in mind. Okay, as much as we like to take the mick out of Newcastle, and I hate admitting this, their team is not a bad team. Their team is not a bad team at all. Obviously, you've got Bruno Guimaraes, Sandro Tonali, even Lewis Miley coming in for Joe Linton's not a bad step up placement at all. Then, Anthony Gordon. Okay, I know he's not done well this season, but Anthony Alanga isn't a bad player in my opinion. Nick Voltemada, especially after last weekend, is great. But when I've seen him, when I've watched Newcastle a few times this season, and when I've watched him, I've actually been quite impressed with him. I think Livramento and Hall, they're both injured at the minute, but obviously both played against Sunderland. So they're both going to be potentially England's starting fullbacks at the World Cup next summer. So for me, it's a good team we've beaten. It is a good team we've beaten. And we did it by essentially shutting down anything that they did going forward. And we've able to, obviously, look, did we create a lot ourselves? No, we didn't. But I think what people do tend to forget about this is Newcastle squad, but like just for context, right, I think Dominic Shaw from the Northern Echoes, so he was the guy who tweeted this, so he deserves the credit for this. But he put something like Newcastle paid, what was it, 124 million for Anthony Alanga and Nick Voltemada this last summer, also this summer 2025. Whereas for around 10 million more, we got the likes of let me get this right, Roofs, Xhaka, what was it, Siddiqui, Diarra, actually maybe not Diarra, he didn't start, but Mukiele, Alderete, everyone, you get the idea. Talbi, Traore, Broby, everything else. We've basically gone and signed a bunch of players there for that. And to be fair for Newcastle, probably a lot has to be asked about their recruitment. So wait and see. John Parr, Newcastle got no backline. I like that. Yeah. Like I said, going forward, I really do rate Newcastle. They're a very, very good side. And I think but the weird thing is with them, not to mention them too much, obviously, but I'd have to mention them a bit because we were talking about the derby. But at St James's, they're generally very good. I know they scraped past 10-man Burnley and didn't beat Spurs, but I watched them against Man City a few weeks ago, and they generally deserve to win, in my opinion. So Yeah, I think but obviously away from home they've been shocking, haven't they? And I think questions rightly will be asked of Eddie Howe in terms of their away form because it's been abhorrent at best. They've only got, what was it, Everton away in the Prem as their only away win this season. And let's not forget they've lost to Sunderland, who they'll say is a newly promoted side. They drew away at Leeds. Caveat there, to be fair, is they didn't have a striker at that point. Lost to go away at Brentford, no disgrace. Lots of teams have lost at Brentford this season. West Ham, fair enough. So yeah, it is concerning. But at the end of the day, that's not Sunderland's problem. And some Newcastle fans will probably say, well, he only beat us because of an own goal. But in which case, I would argue in the FA Cup game a couple of years ago, you beat us because A, Michael Beale, B, rolling out the red carpet, C, own goal, D, mistake, and then E, penalty. It works in roundabouts, doesn't it? So it's just all it is. And I did make the joke actually that if Newcastle don't have a miles superior team to Sunderland, they don't tend to beat us. But we'll wait and see what happens in the reverse fixture. There's plenty of games to come. And if Sunderland are going to want to be where I believe our potential is as in the Premier League, first of all, we need to stay in the Premier League, and then we need to build to a side that's challenging for Europe on a regular basis, in my opinion. Not this season, but beyond that. And for me, that's not unrealistic. And if that's the case, Newcastle Sunderland is going to be a regular fixture anyway, isn't it? So, anyway, let's get into enough of my waffling for about the last 5 minutes. Let's have a look. John says, Regis said we will be in for 2 or 3 players this window. Hopefully, they are players who go straight into the squad. I agree. I hope so. Obviously, John, from an earlier comment, says, all right, Michael. And there's Sheffield Wednesday's number 1 fan in case. Yeah, no, joking. Obviously, good to see you and your mother, Nikki. Hope she pass me love on to Nikki, by the way, case. Yeah, your mother. Hopefully, she's well. The Eot Bowers. The Derby day was literally the best day. I can't stop watching the match over and over and over again. I don't blame you. The game itself wasn't good, really, from an attacking standpoint in terms of quality from both sets of sides, both sets of players. But my God, the atmosphere was just electric and it was insane. And I will say this, mind, and I'll defend Newcastle. I think Newcastle fans would agree with me. There's any that's somehow watching this. If anyone tries to downplay the significance of Newcastle versus Sunderland, deluded. It's one of the biggest rivalries in English football, and it predates. I think it goes back to the English Civil War, doesn't it? It predates football even. So, it's a big, big rivalry. Steve Brew, sounds like you're saying Steve Bruce, can see the club on a crazy trajectory of popularity. People's second club, Mexico support, etc. Yeah, possibly. Will do, Bowers, mate. Thanks very much, Case. Yeah. Are you and your mother going to Brighton tomorrow? I'm not. But I think obviously you guys will be. I think the next away game I'm doing, I think, is Brentford, and I think I'm doing Everton in the Cup. So that should be pretty good. Have you seen the rumour of the River Plate 15-year-old has 100 million release clause? I have seen that. Obviously, we'll wait and see what happens with that one. I think the good thing, mine, to be fair, though, is that because Sunderland have got themselves in the Premier League, and touch wood, because I am incredibly and ridiculously superstitious, is that I think it looks like we're going to be in the Premier League next season. I think it'll be a good case of Sunderland being able to attract better, higher caliber of younger players. So I think that's going to be really, really telling. And remember, and especially if you, as a promoted club, stay up the first season, then beyond that, you're getting so much more money coming into the club. And look, I remember this. I don't know if people remember the second tier podcast, and I actually quite like them. As an unpopular opinion, I quite like them. Whenever they've talked about Sunderland, I generally think they've been quite on the money and quite accurate. But one of the things that Ryan Gilks said, and he's a good lad actually. I think I messaged him a couple of times, but he said something like, "If you go up as a promoted club, you have to finish the highest of the promoted clubs, and then you have to hope that one of the 17 has an absolute howler." And Wolves seem to be determined to do that, although they did play well at Arsenal, to be fair. Very unlucky to lose. But yeah, Wolves seem to be determined to do their bit. I still think Leeds and Burnley will go down with them. I think Burnley look gone for me. I mean, I know that mathematically they're not gone, obviously, but I just don't think the quality's there. I think Wolves obviously left themselves far too much to do. They're already 14 points effectively adrift of, might even be 15 actually, effectively with the goal difference. They're effectively 15 points adrift of safety, really. And then I think it's going to be between Leeds and West Ham. Actually, see what people think in the comments or in the chat. Who do you think will go down this season? I think for me, it's going to be Burnley and Wolves will be the bottom 2. And I think it's going to be between Leeds and West Ham for that last relegation spot. And at the minute, I'd still probably edge Leeds. Just because, look, Leeds have got Crystal Palace at home tomorrow, who are having to make a bunch of changes from playing in the Europa Conference League last night and have Arsenal in the Carabao Cup quarter-final on Tuesday. And West Ham have Man City away. So there's a good chance Leeds could be 6 points ahead of West Ham. But I would say that I think West Ham have better resources. They have a better manager, in my opinion. Yeah, I think John makes a good point there. If West Ham have a good January, Leeds are effed. Let's put it that way. So yeah, I can certainly see where you're coming from. 4 a.m. start. Wow, 4 a.m. Oh, sorry, 4 hour. I thought you said 4 a.m. start. Drive for us to Brighton tomorrow. Yeah, that's going to be interesting, isn't it? But hopefully it goes well for you. Actually, fair with you living down Sheffield, it won't be quite as long, will it? John says Dewsbury Hall out till February, so we have a good chance. Yeah, he plays for Chelsea though, doesn't he? Oh, does he? Oh no, sorry, Everton. I make mistake. He used to be at Chelsea, didn't he? But yeah, no, I think the point I'm getting at is, I think if Leeds and Burnley go down, then it's still quite something for the promoted clubs. The two of the promoted clubs have gone down, and Sunderland have effectively taken Wolves' place in the top 17 in the country. So, and obviously from our point of view, selfishly, it's good, but just proves how broken the system is, doesn't it? Financially, but yeah, the Premier League probably won't change it, will they? Um, but yes, no. So I think, but the point I'm getting at is, if we're in the Prem next season, to make it to make it a roundabout way, if we're in the Prem next season, then I think the money you get coming in means you're able to attract better quality, and I think with the youngsters we'll target, especially with the promise we have that we let players go when the time is right, as long as it benefits us financially, then I think all right, then we could really do something here. So yeah, I'm quite. But and here's another question for you: are any of you excited for the January window? Because I'm very excited for it. I'm not going to lie. Now, obviously, again, touch wood, it doesn't go tits up. Hopefully, it goes well enough. But yeah, I think we're gonna. I think from what Regis said, we're going to get 2 or 3 signings in. Now, I suspect that it will be 2 or 3 big game-changing signings, even more so than what it has been already, if that's even possible. But I think it won't be anywhere near as hectic as the summer. And I actually reckon, here's an unsung shout here. I would not be surprised if Sunderland prioritise still perfecting the midfield and defence this window coming up. Because look at it this way, I still think 40 points is the target. And to get that, we need to get 14 points in 22 games. And I think we'll have more than enough even if we lose tomorrow or whatever, I think we'll have enough to. I wouldn't be surprised if we lost tomorrow. Brighton's a good team, actually. But the point I'm getting at is 14 points in 22 games is the worst we need to do. And it requires a significant drop off from there. So, and obviously we've got AFCON now. We've arrived at the AFCON period, so it's going to be tricky. But we knew that when we were going to sign all these African players. But I also think if we spend this January, perfecting the midfield and defence, then I think next season and next summer, with another year of Prem money behind us, and especially with profit and sustainability changing to squad cost ratio, so PSR turns into SCR, it basically means with squad cost ratio, you can spend up to 85% of your income or your turnover on the first team squad or first team costs, which includes head coaches and assistant coaches, stuff like that. But basically, that would mean that I think next summer we'll really prioritize the attacking signings, and and I think that's where I'm going to be really excited to see what happens. But I genuinely think this. I wouldn't be surprised if this January we prioritize the midfield and the defense, and then when next season comes around, we've already got that sorted. Hang on, just wipe the camera a bit. But yeah, we've already got those things sorted. So I wouldn't be shocked if that is the case. And then next summer we go for the attacking ones. I'm at Diallo. And yes, spoiler, I don't think it'll happen. John says, hope we are the only promoted club to stay up. I actually hope so as well, weirdly. I think Leeds could have a chance depending on what happens in January and depending on if they can get a good distance clear of West Ham. But I think West Ham's quality will prove too much in the end. But we'll wait and see. West Ham, I think, have a lot of PSR headway in January that I don't think Leeds do. I could be wrong on that, though. Someone might want to correct me. John says, we aren't going down. We have to plan for top 10 or Europe if possible. Yeah, that's the ideal world, John. I think personally for me, my target before the Everton game would be if we could get to 30 points at least, then I'm very happy with that. And I know you can say, well, hang on, 4 points in the next 5. On paper is doable, but we have Man City at home in that run. We have Spurs away. Okay, Spurs are Spurs, but it's still a hard game. Or it'll prove to be a hard game. I think as well, who's the other one? Brighton away tomorrow. I think some people underestimate how hard a getaway game Brighton is. I know Brighton aren't the most consistent at the minute, but it's a very tough game. Very, very tough game. But so there is that. Then obviously you got Leeds at home, which I think Leeds at home, and that's not an easy game either. But I do think Leeds at home is the one that it's the one that I think we're most likely to win as long as we perform and we're competent enough. But hopefully Calvert-Lewin gets 2 yellows tomorrow or something and is out for it because I do rate him as a striker. But and obviously Nemecha Okafor, I think is the name. They've been doing pretty well for Leeds. So, but The point is, I think if we get the 30 points before Everton in the cup, that's That's an incredible effort, in my opinion. That is a really good effort as far as the I think as an incredible effort as far as points tallies go. And then at that point, to get the 40 points, you just need another 10 points, don't you? So we'll wait and see. Casey, to be difficult playing for screen against our former player Danny Welbeck tomorrow. Yeah, that guy Welbs, love the guy. Hope he has a crap game tomorrow though. West Ham drew with Brighton, so they'll be got at. Just hope we beat Leeds, to be honest. Yeah, I think if we beat Leeds, then if we could nick a draw or two out of Brighton, Man City, Spurs, Brentford, then I think I'd be content with that. It'd be nice to get something at Brentford because I'm going to Brentford, but we'll wait and see. The dog's kind of pouring at the door, so I might have to let her out in a minute. But look, I'm very keen. Like I said, I think if we can get past 30 points for Everton in the cup, then I think we've done quite well. And then from there, and I'm going to steal what Taff says on the brilliant show Propaganda and the general stuff he does with Conor Bromley, who's also very good. I think, he says, what was it, awesome after AFCON. And I can actually see that because I can see, as long as we get lucky with injuries for once, if we have, Diarra, Siddiqui, Diarra will be like a new signing pretty much, even though he's played a couple of games, but he's missed most of the season, really. Diarra, Siddiqui, Reynildo, Traore, Talbi and all that. I'm thinking, well, something? That could be really... I'm really encouraged to see what we could do after AFCON, actually. But either way, so yeah, we'll wait. Like I said, we'll wait and see on that one. But I'm excited to see that. But we've got January coming up as well. The last thing I'll touch on about the derby before we start to move on to Brighton and AFCON and stuff like that is, I think and I was just putting a video up on YouTube while I was in the background while I was talking, and it had the picture of the team photo from Newcastle from a couple of years ago here, and I believe it was Jason Tyndall. I believe Newcastle. I think I've got the name right. Newcastle's assistant manager or assistant head coach who had that idea, and let's say I love the housery we did, or the shithousery that we did for the team photo at the very end, because I think, and even John Anderson, by the way, former Newcastle player on BBC Radio Newcastle, has said the same thing. He wasn't keen on it when when Newcastle did the team photo against us a couple of years ago, but he also said that it comes round, what goes round comes round, and eventually it came back round to bite Newcastle on the backside. So I think it's a lesson to... That's why I tend not to dish it out too much, even when we win, because I don't like it when people do it to me. So I try to be quite consistent on that regard. But, it just goes to prove, have a bit more class. But yes, let's see. Oh, Sansa, man, stop pouring at the door. Hang on. Right, as soon as I've read this comment, I'll let the dog out. Felt like yesterday it was people had us going down. Now we need 14 points in 22 games. Yes. That's worst case scenario, by the way, because I think we'll get more than 14 points in the last 22. Again, touch wood on that. But yeah, I think we'll be... I think we will. There is definitely encouragement there. There's definitely encouragement. And you're right. I think it did feel like yesterday people had us going down. People would have had us going down yesterday, but I think what was my point? But I think the point I'm getting at is, if... I did say before, whether our chances of staying up or not, it did heavily depend on recruitment. It depended on what we would do. And I did say, to be fair, that I think, and even in the summer, I think a lot of people underestimated what we could do because, in my opinion, because we barely spent as much in the Championship and in the League One days, PSR-wise, we would have had a really good wiggle room to go for it. And bearing in mind, we sold Watson and Bellingham in the summer as well. So we had more scope to get better players. We had the ability to recruit better, quite frankly. So I think there is a lot of encouragement in that regard. And I think that, yes, okay, I understood why people predicted us to go down, because the promoted clubs the last 2 years have been terrible, quite frankly. And the natural assumption would be that it's going to happen again. But I did point out that I think a lot of people overlooked the recruitment Sunderland could do. And when Sunderland signed Xhaka, that was the moment where I thought, hang on. Because until that point, I thought we would go down. But since that point, I thought, oh, hang on a minute. I think we might actually look like doing something here. And I tipped us to stay up, but I predicted us to finish 17th. So it wasn't like I went top 10 or anything. I went for us to finish bottom 4. But yeah, I went for Brentford to go down at the start of the season, because I still stand by that I had valid reasons for that, because they'd lost Wissa, they'd lost Mbeumo, they'd lost Norgard, they'd lost Frank, all in one window. But you've got to hand it to Keith Andrews. He's done superbly, to be honest. So, yeah, I don't think there's any way you can discredit him for it. So, but yes, you're right. It was quite a while ago, people did have us to tip us to go down. So, whereas now, you're looking, and like John said before, I think, we're looking, or one of the Johns said it, I can't remember which one. So, KLD, you're looking at top 10 or planning for potentially Europe. Now, I think Europe this season will be a stretch. I think it's going to be difficult, unless your 8th or ninth gets you Europe, then maybe I could see us doing it. But in general, I think it's going to be quite tricky to do. But if we got top 10, I'd be over the moon with that. That is a fantastic effort for a promoted club in the first year back, especially after 8 years out as well. And although our PSR wiggle room was a lot, it still pales in comparison to what the traditional top 17 would have had. They would have had so much more. Even Wolves. Wolves have just been managed terribly. They would have had more wiggle room and resources than what we would have done, I think. So, yeah, I'm quite encouraged. But wait and see. But yeah, anyway, let's park the derby now. That's done. Yeah, I'm buzzing. We won it, but it's done. We've now got to move on. We've got a game. We've got a game tomorrow against Brighton. So, is it Balaba, Gomez, and Dunk are all out? I've got myself on the screen. I don't want to see that. But I think with them three being out, they are three pretty big players. I know Gomez is quite big for Brighton. I think Lewis Dunk's been good this season, but I think what's quite encouraging. I'll just move these so the dog can come on, Sansa. Come on, where you go? I don't know whether you'll see her in the next. There she is, just sitting down. But with them being out, it could be a good time to play Brighton. And I do think that Brighton with West Ham. Brighton are there to be got at because I watched the second half of the game between Brighton and West Ham. And West Ham, until the last 10 minutes, were all over Brighton, in my opinion. So I think they can be got at, but I do think it's a very hard game. If you offered me a point now, tomorrow, I'd be very happy with it because, well, with context, if we're 1-0 up and concede late on or 2-0 up and draw 2-2, although we haven't scored in the black kit yet, so maybe the best we'll hope for is a 0-0. But joking aside, I think a point tomorrow would be good. If you gave us 4 points out of the next two, I'd be very happy because then, say if you drew tomorrow, even if you won tomorrow and drew against Leeds, or preferably we draw tomorrow, beat Leeds, then you're on 30 points going into the new year, which is insane considering we're a promoted club. But then again, I suppose when you look at Sunderland's quality, is it as surprising? Maybe this well, probably, but we've generally got good players at Prem level, so 5 people have just stopped watching. What's the matter with us? But no, what I was going to say is I think tomorrow's going to be tricky. Now, the thing I want to ask people, those who are watching in the chat, what would your team be tomorrow? And it's generally a wider point about AFCON because now we've got here and we've got the players missing that we have done. And I'm so glad the likes of Reynildo, Siddiqui, Talbi and Traore played last week, by the way. And apparently they were the ones who said they wanted to play Newcastle first before going out to AFCON. So I'm glad they understood how big the fixture was. But and I think if it weren't for Newcastle, be playing Newcastle, they probably would have left last week. But with it being Newcastle, I think it was a case for them staying. But my team for AFCON, I was thinking about this. A lot of it depends on systematic changes. But if I'm looking at a 4-3-3 or a 4-2-3-1, because it's effectively a similar formation, you're just moving the wingers around and moving things around pretty much. But I would say if you're looking at a 4-3-3, I would say it would be Roofs, then in goal, obviously. Then I think it would be Hume. Then I think it would be Ballard, Hume at left back, Ballard, Alderete, Mukiele right back. I know Graham on What the Folk, I think he said that he doesn't think Hume could do a job at left back, and that's fair enough, that's his opinion. I disagree. I think Hume can do a job at left back. I think he's obviously not as effective as he is on the right, but I do think he's good enough for, I'd like to hope anyway, he's good enough for a few weeks. And bearing in mind, Reynildo's, I've forgotten the country that I think Reynildo, geography was not my strong point, but Reynildo's country or nation at AFCON, I don't think is tipped to do very well. So it could be that Reynildo is back for Spurs, I think. So that's going to be quite encouraging if that's the case. So it'd only be about 3 games then if that's the case that we're going to be without Reynildo unless he gets injured. But anyway, so I think it'd be Roofs, Mukiele, Ballard, Alderete, Hume. I think it'd be Gertruda and Xhaka in the middle. Then I think it would probably be, you're probably talking something like Lafay. If you're talking in a midfield 3, Lafay in front of them. Then I think it would be Mundell, maybe Adingra, but I wouldn't be surprised if Chris Rigg played on the right, and then Brobbey Isidore up front. And it's a similar principle in a 4-2-3-1, where Lafay is in between Mundell and Adingra / Rigg, and then Brobbey / Isidore up front with Hacker and Gertruda in the middle, and then the back 5 that I previously mentioned. So John's responded to this and goes, Roof, Mukiele, Ballard, Alderete, Sirkin, Xhaka, Gertruda, Lafay, Adingra, Brobbey, Mundell. See, effectively, apart from Hume at left back, that's pretty much the team that I would imagine we could go with. And actually, what I'd be hopeful for tomorrow is that Adingra wants to prove a point, because it's obviously against his old club away from home, isn't it? It's the club that decided he wasn't going to be good enough, basically. And bear me a minute, guys. I'm just going to let the dog out because she's kind of pawing at the door. But hang on, son. There we go. Go on then, child. There you go. She kept pouring at the door, so I thought I'll let her out. I'll not keep her trapped in here. So, yeah, but what I was going to mention is Adingra hopefully will want to prove a point tomorrow. And obviously, I think Tommy Watson, someone correct me in the comments, is Tommy Watson injured? I don't know whether he's going to feature against us or not, but we'll see. John Traore, Ronaldo will be back early. Yep, hopefully. John Paul, I agree with this. It is now or never for Adingra. And obviously, Reynaldo's nation is Mozambique. Is it Mozambique? I think it's how you say it. Mozambique or Mozambique. Yeah, my pronunciation's almost as good as my geography. Terrible, in other words. But yeah, quickly back to this comment from John. It is now or never for Adingra. Yes, I would agree with that. I think if Adingra isn't going to feature now, then he's not going to feature much at Sunderland. And I think, and again, to mention propaganda yesterday, or the the preview to Brighton game between Connor and Taff. Taff made an excellent point that actually I think, if he's not going to feature now, then next summer, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if he went out on loan in January if we got another winger, or he'll probably get sold in the summer. Now, obviously, you could say we spent 20 million quid on him, and the weird thing is, although compared to what we've been paying over the previous 8 years, that's a lot of money for us. But in Premier League terms, that's pittance, it's peanuts. So I'm fascinated to see how if Adingra's going to feature here, and I think with him not getting called up, this is his chance. He has to go and really take it and grasp it with both hands here, because the reason he left Brighton to come here was for game time. And if he's not going to get, and I think this is where he's going to have to prove that he's going to be willing to do the defensive side of things, and he's going to have to prove why we spent 20 million quid on him. So we'll see. Hopefully Adingra has a brilliant game tomorrow against his former side, though. I agree. Bo Jimgles. Yeah, and thanks very much for watching Midweek Mackems last night. It was a really good laugh. With Duncan Gomez out suspended, Watson, Thomas, Webster, and Watson injured, and Balaba at AFCON, they have the same amount of people out. Okay, fair enough, mate. I didn't know that, so thanks very much for correcting me on that. So maybe we could get something tomorrow. I mean, look, originally I thought we'd lose the game, but I do think we could go there and get a point, maybe. But I think if we can go there and win, it's even better, obviously. But yeah, if you gave us a point tomorrow, I'll be happy. But I think when it comes to AFCON, this is what I was thinking, which is if we were going to, this is where, because obviously we're signing a bunch of these African players, they're all going. But I think in terms of starting 11, what's been mentioned before, so I'll quickly get John's team back up again. See if I can find it. Where is it? So if this is the team, so look, Roof, Mukiele, Ballard, Alderete, Sirkin, Xhaka, Hertruda, Lefay, Adingra, Broby, Mundle. So take out Sirkin and put Hume in there. That for me is still a more than competent enough starting 11 to get a couple of results in the meantime. The depth is where the issue is, but we'll wait and see. But again, I think it's a competent enough considering the players you've had out missing. John, we can get a point against Brighton. I hope so. I'd take a point tomorrow straight away. They've beaten Newcastle at home. They've beaten Man City at home. They're a good side. They're a bloody good side, Brighton. So I think, though, that... but I think if you look at Adingra not being called up, that could be huge for us because it's another option out wide. Now, it also could be Mayenda might go out wide. We don't know. Acacia says, I've just gone on to the Brighton press conference to listen to a bit of it, and the Brighton manager said they've got no injuries at all for tomorrow. Yeah, well, I think he probably will mean no additional injuries to what's already there. I suspect that's what he might have meant, but we shall see. Get some questions in, guys. We'll probably go for another 15, 20 minutes, and then we will leave it because I'm going to be meeting my mate for a walk in a couple of hours. And obviously, it's a beautiful day, actually. So, but yes, I'm quite looking forward to that later on. But yeah, we'll get some questions in. So let's have a look. For me, just for a balance back four, Hume right back, Mukiele centre back, Ballard centre back, Alderete left back, Xhaka, Lefay, Rig. And I'm guessing you mean Mundle, Adingra, and Isidore / Broby. That's what I'm suspecting you mean, but I don't know whether that's accurate or not. Me personally, I'll put Hume left back because I think he can play in that position. I think Mukiele is good at right back. He's been good recently. Ballard and Alderete, I don't see any rreason to sort of rip that partnership up, if you like. But I do think Ballard and Mukiele could certainly do a good job together at centre backs. So, but that's what I see. But yeah, if you can get questions in and maybe get score predictions for tomorrow. On Midweek Mackems, I said 2-2 for a laugh. So we'll wait and see. Yeah, Mundle, Isidore, and Mayenda. It looks like you put Isidore, which is quite funny. But I know who you meant. John, where do we need to strengthen in January? To answer that question, I would say right winger, I think is one, because I like Traore, and I think Traore's been improved quite a bit recently. But I think he's sort of I view him as and this sounds disrespectful to him, but it's not. But I don't intend it this way because I think he is a solid player. but he says, "What a stopgap before we can get a better winger." Because in the Premier League, especially in the forward areas, that's where the players are going to cost a shit ton of money. Basically, they're going to cost a lot of money in terms of the transfer fees, and then obviously wages go up. Everything else, it's a nightmare. So I think Traore, when he was available for a couple of million, it was worth signing him for this because he could probably do enough this season to help us stay in the Prem, and then next season we could attract someone who's better. But if you're asking my point of view, I think right winger would be the main one. Actually, well, John's already answered his own question. Right wing, left back, centre mid for me. Yeah, I think that's a fair enough shout. I think the strikers I'm content with for this season. Maybe another forward to allow Mayenda to go out on loan. But that's just a me thing. But if Mayenda doesn't go out, obviously then I think the strikers Isidore Mayenda and Broby I'm fairly content with for this season. I think if you're asking me, but I'd say left back, I think we could do with another one. I think centre mid, I wouldn't mind one. I actually think we'll get Guendouzi. I know there's been talks about him saying. I know that he's been apparently quoted as saying from an Italian publication he wants someone in Europe. But I'm telling you now, I think if we're in a good position for next year to look like we could challenge for it, and I think you're looking at Lebris knows him heavily well, Xhaka knows him well from the Arsenal days. I think there's a chance that happens. I genuinely think there's a good chance that Guendouzi comes here, but we'll see. But yeah, so I think centre mid, I wouldn't mind another one for a bit more depth, and right winger. But I think right winger is the main one where I'd like to see us strengthen. But I wouldn't be surprised if we prioritise defensive midfield this coming window, and then we properly go for the attacking signings next summer. We are back to the big boy world now, Michael. We will buy 30, 40 million pound players. Yep, I agree with that. We've already bought a 30 million pound player in Habib Diarra. But yeah, I think, again, this is what I mean. The longer if you become established again, and the longer you're in the Prem, the more money you can spend. So it's going to be fascinating. I'm really excited. I'm really excited for the January window. I really am. John says, "Who would you loan and sell out of the fringe players?" Now, a lot of that for me will depend on incomings. But I think, for example, if you had, let's say Guendouzi as an example, right? If Guendouzi did come in, then I think Dan Neil would go. I think there's every chance Dan Neil will go because I think he'll want to play football, and I think. Obviously, bearing in mind he's out of contract in the summer, so I think you wouldn't get very much from him. The most you'd get is 2 million, probably. You might not even get that, truthfully, or 2-3 million. And there's a good chance you might not even get that. But I do think with Dan Neil, if he does go, I mean, there's been Football League World, I think it is. How reliable they are, I don't know. I suspect probably not very, but you never know. But they've been saying that Dan Neil is on the radar of Coventry, Frank Lampard. I think for a top-end championship club, I think Dan Neil would absolutely do a job. Absolutely do a job. And yeah, as John's just said there, Coventry want Neil. I think Coventry could do a hell of a lot worse than signing Dan Neil. And I'm someone who, I know Jimmy Paddy, who watches my content, really hates Dan Neil and really doesn't like him. Well, maybe hate, I don't know, is a strong word, but he really doesn't rate him. Now, I personally think that he is a more than good enough player for top-end championship. Prem, less sure. Obviously, he hasn't had the chance to prove it, really. But I think if he's not, well, put it this way, for Dan Neil, if he's not going to feature in this AFCON period, then he's not got a long-term future here when we're in the Prem, which is a shame, really. And it's not a slight on Dan Neil. It's just how the Premier League is. It's not his fault. It's more just the Prem is just ridiculously money inflated, and it is just like it's mental. Like it's mental the amount of Sorry, just checking my phone. It's mental the gap between the Championship and the Prem is just ridiculous. So we'll see. Wolfsburg wants Seal for £12 million. Now, if that's accurate, then yeah, I think personally. If you can get 12 million for it, I think even if you got 5-6 million, you've made a profit on Seal, haven't you? And again, for PSR or SCR, that's good for our turnover for navigating the rules, basically. John says, I don't rate Neil nowhere near good enough. If you mean for the Premier League, I can get that. Hang on, why is this not? Bear me a moment. Right, there we go. I'll just get it up again. My laptop was playing up there. I don't rate Neil nowhere good enough. For the Premier League, I could maybe agree with that. If you mean as a footballer in the Championship, I think it's very harsh you say that personally, but it's fine. Different of opinions. It is allowed, of course. What do you reckon about Chris Rigg? Do you think he'll get game time if anyone gets injured from AFCON when they come back, or do you reckon he might go out on loan? I would. Okay, John's saying for Daniel for the Prem. Okay, fair enough. I can understand that. Right. To answer Acacia's question, I think Rigg will stay. I think there is a possibility at some point down the line if he doesn't get featured here. I think you could sell him for a huge amount of money. Bearing in mind again, like with Trey Hume, like with Eliza Mayenda, I do think because we've got all three of them tied down till 2030, I think with Chris Rigg, there's a case that he could leave and could be what's what I'm looking for. He could be help with PSR or SCR in terms of, and it's pure profit because he's from the academy, isn't he? So I don't think, to answer your question, I don't think he'll leave, but there is a possibility in the near future he could be sold, particularly if he doesn't get games. But I'd like to see Rigg play quite a bit during this period. I think he deserves it. Because against Villa, I thought he looked quite good. But obviously with Reynoldo's moment of stupidity there, I do think he was the victim of circumstance and had to be the one sacrificed to help us get a point out of that game. See, wouldn't mind Vazquez from Seville, Swiss International. Bangkok Black Cat here says, Flint, I'm just getting Mickey Dove. Oh, nice one. Sadly, he's not good enough. 009, we have to let fringe players go. They deserve it. Rigg must stay, Pato away too, and the other dross behind them all. Well, I think personally, if you're asking me, I think 09 will stay purely because I think he's massive behind the scenes, and I think that is a pretty big thing, actually. So, if you're asking me, I think 09 will stay, and I think I agree with 09 staying. I think Neil will probably want to go and play football. I don't blame him. I think I wouldn't even be surprised if Sirkin went in January. Bear in mind, Sirkin, same situation as Neil, last 6 months of his contract by the time. Well, yeah, last 6 months now of their current contracts. Rigg will get time during, I suspect you mean time, minutes, sorry, yeah, you've put it in the next comment. Rigg will get minutes during AFCON, he is ready for the challenge. Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked to see Rigg start tomorrow. I really wouldn't. So yeah, in terms of the other fringe players though, I think Yelder might go out on loan. I think Patterson, there's been rumours about him going to Leicester probably. If that's the case, then we need to get a second choice goalkeeper, because not Simon Moore. I think Simon Moore is quite handy behind the scenes apparently, but I'd be quite concerned if he's number 2 in the Prem in case Roofs gets injured. So yeah, I think there's quite a few positions I would like us to see strengthened in January, but I think if it's going to be 2 or 3 players coming in, then I think it's going to be focused on the quality rather than quantity of it. But that also could dictate depending on what happens elsewhere in terms of outgoings, really. 09 is doing a coaching course with little kids. He is future-proofing himself. He isn't going anywhere anytime soon. No, I agree. I think 09 will retire here. I think he's earned it as well. He's got his minute. He's got a couple of minutes in the Premier League. I wouldn't even be surprised if Luke 09 towards the back end of the season, if we're in a situation where we can't get Europe, we can't go down, and we'll say for example, if come Wolves away, for instance, and we've already kind of secured a top 10 finish, but we can't get Europe, then it might be that 09 might start it there, maybe to get a start in the Prem, because he's dreamed of it, hasn't he? But I love 09 a bit. Is he good enough for the Prem? Probably not. But I think he's so influential behind the scenes, and I think a lot of people will underestimate. I think we won't appreciate how good what we've got with Luke 09 until he's left, unfortunately. But yeah, I would happily see 09 stay here for the next 2.5 years, because it was 2018 he joined and he gets a testimonial, and I think does he go down as a club legend? I'll let people decide that, but I think there's an argument for it, certainly. Shiny Red Flag, love that name. Given that visitors have a better team than us, calling the deluded Bruno Guimaraes, how many do you think will beat them by a match? If you're asking my opinion, I think head on, I think we lose at St James's, because I think at home they are pretty good. But please, right, red flag, shiny red flag, clip that up, and if we beat them in March, feel free to make me look like an idiot. I'm imploring you, go for it. Hopefully, I am looking like an idiot here. But yeah, let's see. Maybe we'll go there, but hopefully we won't go there and take a team photo because we've got too much class to do that. The difference was, obviously, like Xhaka said, in front of our fans, it's different. Boom Jingles as Rigg could be the legs to replace Sadiki over AFCON. Yeah, very good shout, actually. I didn't think about that. John Sipar says, KLD wants Europe and we don't see him come out and do interviews like that one just before the Everton game. Just shows how serious he is about this. To be fair, he did say we're looking at top 10. I don't think he mentioned Europe specifically, but I wouldn't be... Oh, hang on. Was there a documentary that was on YouTube about this? It was in a foreign language. It might have been in French or something. But for the Premier League, I'm sure he mentioned something like, Champions League is the goal. And I think that was tongue-in-cheek, but it might be... I haven't seen it, actually, but it might be that he mentioned Europe in that regard. But... yeah, we'll see about that one. We'll go for another couple of minutes, guys, and then we'll end it here, I think. Thanks to everyone who has tuned in. Obviously, 32 people watching, so that's pretty good. If you could hit the like button, that would be great. And obviously, if you're watching and you think I've earned a sub, then hit the sub button and like and everything, all that jazz. You know how it is. Okay, says Danny Welbeck is injured for tomorrow. That's good. If that's the case, that's good for us because I really rate him. Me and Mum listening to the press conference from Brighton now. Okay, fair enough then. You keep me informed, Acacia. That'd be great. I appreciate that. John says, crazy to think Rigg, Sadiki and Talby could be £100 million players someday. Not an audacious shout. Not an audacious shout at all. Miggy Duff says, Canal Plus, that was the program. KLD said it. Okay. Can someone put a link to that in the if it's on YouTube? If you mean that documentary, because then I might actually watch that a bit later on, or a link in the put a link in the chat, and then we'll sort of start to go from there. But look, I think the final thing I want to point out is look, how serious is the talk about Europe? Look, I think what we are, we're 8th in the league, aren't we? Let me just double check. Yes, we're 8th. But the weird thing is, we're 2 points off 4th. That's how congested the league is. I think what's quite encouraging, I think Connor Bromley mentioned this as well. I think what's quite encouraging is that everyone's beaten everyone, apart from maybe Wolves, obviously, who are cut adrift, and Arsenal, Man City, Villa are quite some way at the top. But I do think what's quite encouraging is the fact that the league is that tight. People are beating everyone. And I think if that's the case, it could be that it might not take as many points to finish in a European place if we're really looking at that. I'm still looking at 40 points first and then going from there. But I'll be very surprised if we go down at this point. But I think January depends. I think we're an attractive proposition anyway for anyone. We should be an attractive proposition as a club the size of Sunderland, because I believe we're in the top 10 biggest clubs in the country. But I think, 10th biggest club probably. But like the point I'm getting at is, if you're looking at Sunderland as a player, you must surely think we'd be worth going for, especially with all the buzz and everything else that's going on right now. And and especially with how close we are to Europe as well. And another thing as well, by the way, I'd like us to give the FA Cup a good go. I would like to give us the FA Cup a good go. I'm not saying necessarily we'll beat Everton, and if we play a strong team and Everton play a strong team and they beat us, fine, fair enough. That's how it is. But yeah. So I am going to, but guys, I am going to Brentford and I am going to Everton. So it should be. Well, I think I'm going to Everton anyway, and I'm not 100%. Think I will be, but we'll wait and see. If KLD wants Europe, he will go for it. We still have a lot of money in the pot for January. Well, this is another thing. Apparently, if our PSR situation is still quite good and the system's changing next season anyway, then I could see us maxing out on that and go, well, we might as well take advantage of it and use it. So we'll see. There's the link, Michael. I haven't got it, mate. I don't know whether you've sent me it on social media or whatever else, but I'll have a check as soon as I finish doing this. Being one of the most entertaining Premier Leagues in ages, yeah, I think it has done, and I think we're probably saying that because we're doing unbelievably well in it. But yeah, I think it has definitely. It's been very, very entertaining. Canal Plus Sport, it is in French, so you need English subtitles. Okay, fair enough then. Let's see. GRN1872. You have been great this season. Really well done, my mum, who passed away in May this season. Done my mum proud. I think that's what you're going to say. Done the way season as a Sunderland fan. So best of luck, buddy. Who do you support, mate? I think, is that Chelsea? I think that's Chelsea. And yeah, sorry to hear about your mum. Obviously, my mum passed away in December 2006 when I was 15 years old. So yeah, commiserations. I know exactly how that feels. It's so hard. And I don't wish that on anyone. But yeah. But no, thanks very much, mate. That is appreciated. Look, we'll wait and see. I think that guy's a Chelsea fan. Well, guy or girl, I don't know. It doesn't indicate gender, I suppose. But I believe they're a Chelsea fan. So apart from the last day of the season, and if we meet in the FA Cup, then good luck. But yeah, we'll wait and see. But look, it's been a roller coaster season so far. So one last question I'll ask before I go off. What's been the best result so far this season for you? And I mean in terms of the game, the overall day out, how you felt afterwards, whatever criteria you want. Rangers, mate. Oh, okay, fair enough. Well, hopefully Rangers get their shit together because, a club of that size, it's been ran atrociously, to be honest. Funny enough, my mate, who I'm meeting to go for a walk later on, actually likes Rangers as well. It is Sunderland fan primarily. First and foremost, I can promise you he's diehard Sunderland through and through, but has a big soft spot for Rangers and follows them a lot. So, yeah. It's Rangers have been shambolically ran. So yeah, there's 40 people watching. Let's get the likes count up. Let's see what we are on. John says Hearts are storming the Scottish League. Well, one of my mates actually, funny enough, or someone I know is a Hearts fan. So and I've been to a couple of Hearts games. Obviously, I went during the pre-season game, and I went for and the couple of days before we played Everton, which was the Saturday, because we played Everton on the Monday night, I went to Hearts versus Dundee because I fancy going to another game. So, it's pretty good, actually. So, if Celtic don't win it, it'll be quite nice to see, or Rangers win it. It'd be nice to see someone different win it, actually. So, let me have a quick check. Let's see what the like count is. Yes, I know that I'm live. Connect me devices and all that stuff. We have got 26 likes. Come on. Let's see if we can get to at least like 30. Let's see if we get to like 30, between 30 and 40 likes. Let's have a look. Boom Jingle says, Michael, we tucked in behind the lad leaders, ready for the final furlong. Remember tap Triple A amazing after AFCON. Yep, he was the guy who said it. He's the one who deserves the credit for it. And knowing you 74. That's a funny name. I like that. Love the content, Michael, and the collab spot on. Merry Christmas for next week. How are the lads and lasses? Best result apart from the Mags, definitely Arsenal. I would say the Mags at the minute, but I would say if you're taking out the derby, I would still probably go West Ham, just because of how it was the first game back in the Prem. It was the buzz around. Everything just went right for us that day. It went as right for us as you could have imagined it would have done. The only reason people like Rangers is because we effing hate Celtic. Well, I'm sure the Rangers fan in the comments will absolutely love that. But all the same. But guys, I think I am going to leave it there. I think thanks to everyone who has watched. It's really appreciated. It's really good to see. But yeah, no, thanks everyone who has watched. And obviously, I'll have a Brighton video after the game tomorrow. Hopefully, touchwood, fingers crossed, we're at least talking about Sunderland getting the point. But if we don't, then absolutely fair enough. I'll quickly answer this one because John's just added a question. Who's our most valuable player, taking Siddiqui from the conversation? If you're talking financially, then Roofs probably. But anyway, guys, I will love you and leave you there. It's been a really good stream. It's been really good to see people joining in. But yeah, thanks very much for watching. And to everyone who's going to Brighton, have a safe trip. And in case I don't say it tomorrow, have a Merry Christmas. Hope you get what you want, but more importantly, have a good time with your loved ones, because that's what's most important after all. And especially big Christmas to Nick Voltemata. Nah, joking aside, hopefully everyone's doing all right. And thanks to you, Acacia, as well. And yeah, Acacia, have a good Christmas. I won't see you till the Leeds game. But anyway, take care, everyone. Take care, everyone. Stay safe. Bojingle, West Ham set the ball rolling for me. Yeah, I agree. But anyway, guys, take care. Stay safe. And as always, how are the lads?